The Milwaukee Bucks season already wasn't going well, and it just got worse. Damian Lillard has unfortunately been diagnosed with a blood clot issue and is out indefinitely and might not return to the team at all this season. This is a similar issue, but not the same, to what knocked Victor Wembanyama out for the rest of the season for the Spurs just after the All-Star break. And although first and foremost, we all hope that Dame is able to recover from this and gets healthy, this season is now officially a nightmare for the Bucks. A team that already wasn't that great, doesn't have a future, is missing its second best player indefinitely and potentially just for the rest of the season. This looks like a team that's unlikely to even win a single playoff series this year at all. And we all know what that means. The Giannis rumors, the team circling to try and get him to force a trade, another offseason of all of this pressure on Giannis and the Bucks, all because they simply haven't been good enough. And if you're thinking it's actually not all that bad, they'll be fine, let me go and review with you the last couple of years of Milwaukee Bucks basketball. Going back to the 2020-21 season, the Bucks were the 3 seed in the East. Of course, they end up winning the title. It wasn't an amazing regular season for Milwaukee. Giannis and Jrue Holiday both missed 20 plus games. Coach Bud was actually in the hot seat for pretty much the entire season, and going into the playoffs, it was pretty clear that if they didn't have a deep playoff run, they were going to fire Coach Bud, and he was not going to be their head coach anymore. And they almost lost to the Nets in the second round. And if that happens, Bud gets fired. Jrue Holiday probably gets traded. The things that we saw from Milwaukee happen later on for them probably happen if they lose to the Nets, but then they go on this great run and they end up winning the title in 2021. And since that moment, since winning the 2021 title, pretty much nothing has gone right for Milwaukee. In the 21-22 season, they are once again the 3 seed in the East, and they have a healthy regular season. They go into the postseason look like a real threat. They're the defending champs. They have Giannis. He's an MVP caliber player. They should be a real threat in the postseason. Unfortunately, Chris Middleton only plays 2 playoff games, which becomes a recurring theme not only for him, but for the team. Injuries in the playoffs. They run into the eventual Eastern Conference champions in the Boston Celtics in the second round. That Celtics team was on a crazy run in the second half of the season. That's the Ime Udoka year. They end up going to the finals and they lose to Golden State in 6 games. And at that point for the Bucks, we just kind of write that playoff series loss off as they didn't have Chris Middleton in the series. And for a team that still ends up making the finals, the Bucks competed really well in the series to only lose in 6 games. So we really weren't all that concerned about Giannis, the future of the Bucks. They had just won the title the year before. Everything was fine. The difference now is, looking back, that was the last time that the Milwaukee Bucks won a playoff series, was 2022. So pretty obviously at this point, things are going downhill for the Bucks. Really quick though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek. We all know that right now there is a ton of live basketball going on. We've got the NBA playoffs coming up. Of course, we got a ton of college basketball going on right now in March, and SeatGeek is the place to get tickets to your favorite events, including, for me personally, the college that I went to, NC State. Their women's basketball team is really, really good and has been for a couple of years, and they have a real chance of making the semifinals of the tournament. And if they make it there, it's in Tampa, which is not that far from me here in Florida. So my wife and I have been really excited looking at tickets on SeatGeek to go to the game. And the best thing about SeatGeek is all their tickets are backed by their buyer guarantee, and it's super easy to see exactly where the good value seats are. If I'm looking at tickets here, you can see all of them are listed on a 1 through 10 scale. You can see green is good, red is bad. If you're looking for great value for your tickets, SeatGeek makes it super easy. And it isn't just sports either. There's a ton of concerts, festivals, other live events on SeatGeek. So if you've got an event that you're excited about, or you just want to see what events are coming to you soon, make sure to check out SeatGeek, and I've got a deal for you as well. Right now, you can get 10% off your next purchase on SeatGeek by using the code LOGICALLY10. Again, you can use the code LOGICALLY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. Make sure to click the link in the description to use your phone to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. So make sure you guys check out SeatGeek, and thank you again to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the Milwaukee Bucks. We left off talking about the 21-22 season, the last time that the Bucks won a postseason series. Then we move on to the 22-23 season. They had the best record in the league that year, which was pretty surprising considering the fact that Chris Middleton played only 33 games. He was hurt most of the year, and Giannis missed almost 20 games once again. And going into the postseason, obviously they were a real legit threat to win the title as they got healthier. The problem was they ran into the Miami Heat in the first round of the postseason, and they lost in 5 games. They went in the postseason with the best record in the entire league and didn't win a playoff series. Now, obviously, there's good reasons for that. Giannis was not healthy. He played in just 3 games in the series against Miami. He averages like 30 minutes per game, even in the games that he plays. And Miami is this great postseason team at this point in time. They've got Jimmy Butler. They're a difficult team to face in the playoffs. They'd had success against Milwaukee in the past. And so it was kind of just written off as another, okay, it was a weird season, but it was definitely time to make some changes in Milwaukee. So they go to the offseason and they fire Coach Bud. They need to make changes. They need to have real postseason success, despite the fact that it's pretty clear the reason they weren't having postseason success was because of injuries. The year prior, Chris Middleton was hurt. Then this year, Giannis gets hurt. hurt, but still, they decide to make some changes. Not only do they get rid of Coach Bud, but they also trade away Jrue Holiday. They bring in Damian Lillard in a massive trade. They were not really on anybody's radar in terms of being a Damian Lillard trade destination once he decided to ask out of Portland. It seemed like pretty much a guarantee that he was going to end up in Miami. They step in, they give up some future assets, they give up Jrue Holiday, and they bring in Damian Lillard. They also bring in Adrian Griffin as their head coach, replacing Coach Bud. And going into that season, there was plenty of optimism in Milwaukee, and they actually had a really good start to the season. And then they fired Adrian Griffin. At the time that they fired Adrian Griffin, they were 30-13, had one of the best records in the entire league. But it was clear that something was going wrong there from a head coaching perspective. They had fired the assistant, a well-respected assistant, former head coach Terry Stotts, in the preseason, like before the season even started. He either quit or got fired. There was issues within the coaching staff, issues with Adrian Griffin and the rest of the team. I don't know if Giannis was a super big fan of him. And once he got fired, they were pretty excited about the fact that they were going to have a new head coach. The problem is, they weren't good the rest of the year. They bring in Doc Rivers. He had a losing record after coming in midseason as a new head coach, and they end up with the third best record in the East that season. But there is good news that year because all of their key guys, with the exception of course, Chris Middleton, played 70-plus games. And the main reason the Bucks didn't have success in the prior few years was because their guys were hurt going into the postseason. So you go into that playoffs thinking, okay, we've changed our roster, we've changed our coach, our guys are healthy, we should be good now in the postseason. Nope. Giannis gets hurt right at the end of the season. He has a calf injury that takes him out of the entirety of the postseason. He doesn't play in the playoffs at all. And Dame ends up missing 2 playoff games as well, and they lose in the first round to Indiana in 6 games. Which leads us to this season, the 24-25 season, and it was clear that there was a lot on the line, a lot at stake in Milwaukee coming into the year. They had made pretty much every change possible on the roster, in the coaching staff, to try and make this work, to try and recapture the magic of the 2021 title. They'd gone through multiple head coaches. They changed the ownership. They changed the roster. They got rid of Jrue Holiday. They bring in Damian Lillard. And it seems like if Giannis is healthy, if the rest of the roster is healthy, if him and Dame can develop a little bit more chemistry after what was a weird offseason for Lillard at the time because he was being traded and he didn't really know what exactly his destination was going to be. They just didn't have great chemistry the year prior. Expectations were pretty high in Milwaukee. Despite an aging roster, you still have Giannis and Damian Lillard at the center of it. They should be pretty good. And it just has not been the season that the Bucks expected it to be. They've once again had issues with injuries throughout the season, and ultimately at the deadline, they decided to move on from their most injury-prone player by far, Chris Middleton. They trade him away in exchange for Kyle Kuzma at the deadline. And now with Damian Lillard potentially out for the rest of the season, this looks like a team that is headed for yet another early playoff exit. A team that has not won a playoff series since 2022 looks like they're going to repeat that fate this postseason. Now, in theory, Dame could return from this issue. They could be really good in the postseason. They could win a series, maybe even 2. But it's clear at this point that unless Giannis goes on an incredible run like he did in the 2021 postseason, the rest of the conference, the top of the conference, has kind of passed them by. Boston is better than them. Cleveland is better than them, and even though you still have Giannis at the center of all this, you could easily argue that Indiana and New York are also better than Milwaukee. It's not hard to argue that the Bucks are the 5th best team in the conference, and that's even with Dame healthy, and that's of course not all of it. They also have pretty much no future. They have no control over any of their first round picks all the way until 2031. They have an aging roster, and not only that, but a roster that has a history of injury issues. Even someone like Giannis that everybody loves and everybody loves watching him play, he's had plenty of injury issues over the years at very inopportune times. I'm not going to go so far as to say that Giannis is injury prone because he has so much responsibility on him throughout the season, but it definitely is becoming a concern given how negatively it's impacted their postseason runs the last couple of seasons. This roster doesn't have really any young guys to be excited about because they haven't drafted well over the last couple of seasons. All of the role guys like Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, are just going to get worse as they get older. The coach of the team, Doc Rivers, certainly isn't going to elevate the team. There's no real coaching change you could make that would elevate the team. They've already tried that. And when you look at the roster, there's really no outs. There's no way to improve this team around Giannis and try and go back up above a lot of these other really good teams in the Eastern Conference. And so the question at this point, in the wake of this Damian Lillard issue, him potentially being out for the season, the Bucks staring down another early playoff exit, is what can save this team? Well, it's obvious. The thing that can save this team is the thing that has saved them for the last couple of years, and that is Giannis's loyalty. For years, Giannis has shown a willingness to stay with the Bucks, to stay in Milwaukee. He clearly has a strong connection with the franchise and the organization that took a chance on him in the middle of the first round all those years ago. And as long as they commit to constantly trying to win, to using their assets to win, to spending a bunch of money to win, he wants to stay there. And they've done that over the years. They've continued to show that willingness, to show that commitment to Giannis. The Jrue Holiday trade in the first place was very risky, and it leads directly to a title. Giannis had not signed a long-term extension at the time of that trade. The Damian Lillard trade was another example. Even if it hasn't worked out perfectly, even if the basketball part of it didn't make as much sense to a lot of people as maybe it did to Milwaukee, it showed a willingness to commit to winning in terms of future assets and in terms of spending. And they also continue to listen to him in terms of roster moves. He apparently was one of the main pieces that was pushing for the team to trade for Kyle Kuzma, to trade away Chris Middleton, and what that would do to help the team this season. And so it's clear that if it's up to Giannis, he would much rather stay in Milwaukee. He'd much rather the team get better around him than him go look for another team to try and win titles. But it's also been made very clear over the years that Giannis wants to win. He wants to win more titles. He doesn't just want to retire as someone that has only won one title. He certainly wants to go deeper into the postseason than just one round in the playoff. And although you could argue that it's just been a series of flukes for this team where you're missing guys due to injury, Giannis himself gets hurt, and then they've just kind of overcorrected with a bunch of changes with the roster and the coaching staff over the last couple of seasons. The bottom line is, if he doesn't see an opportunity to win a title in Milwaukee, his loyalty is going to be tested. And let's just say that the season doesn't go the way Milwaukee wants it to. They lose in the first round, and you're a member of the front office or ownership in Milwaukee, and you go into a meeting this offseason to talk to Giannis, and he's like, hey, I'm feeling kind of uneasy here. What's the pitch for me to stay? What are you guys going to do to try and make this a winning situation once again? What are you going to say to Giannis to convince him that this is the place to be, that they can actually turn this situation into a winner? They don't have a future. They don't have assets. They don't have any more money to spend. They don't really have a way to add another star. The Lillard thing really isn't working all that well. Kyle Kuzma is certainly not going to save the team. There's no case to be made here that can convince Giannis, hey, this is the right place to be to win a title. The only reason he would stay is because he wants to be there. And again, that's the thing that has saved them really for the last couple of seasons. And really the only sign of hope for Bucks fans that obviously don't want to lose Giannis is that this season is not unlike any of the previous ones. Any of the previous ones in which Giannis has obviously recommitted to Milwaukee and wants to stay and has not requested a trade. It's injury disappointment at the end of the season, it's playoff disappointment, and then they go in the next year with some hope and hope that they can turn some things around. And it's pretty clear that the realistic option here is that Giannis is going to stay. That's the realistic outcome of this situation, that he's not going to randomly request a trade out of Milwaukee in the offseason. But the scary thing for the Bucks is that it's not because of anything that they're doing well, it's just because Giannis is that loyal. And as soon as his desire to win a title outweighs his loyalty to the Milwaukee Bucks organization, everything can change.